Very, very close attention to this video. It is a public service announcement, and it's an announcement that the government will not make. It is very important that you listen to every single word that I'm about to say. You pay very, very close attention because this is the most important video you've ever seen. Now, a couple of weeks ago, before the close of the year on December 14, 2018, a federal panel warned of a national blackout in the form of an EMP, an electronic magnetic pulse. The presidential panel on Thursday, it says, called for immediate attention to the imminent threat of a national blackout, lasting possibly 6 months from a terrorist or solar attack on the nation's electric grid. The President's National Infrastructure Advisory Council approved a 94-page report detailing the potential challenges to the government and human life and recommendations for a new focus on the threat made more likely by the development of electromagnetic pulse weapons by terrorist nations, including Iran. Now, I'm going to stop there and pause for a minute. This is very important because it appears that John Bolton, who I've met with personally a few different times over the years, is preparing, along with the Trump administration, for war in Iran. This is one of the reasons why they've been pulling out of countries like Afghanistan and Syria, because what they're really doing is repositioning our troops so that there is a event, I'll just say that, in the near future. Let's continue. Its report was the latest to warn that a blackout would be both deadly and a threat to the nation. Now, experts will tell us that close to 90+% of the human population will die in the event of an EMP. That is, if the grid goes down. That means that the trucking industry would come to a halt within 48 hours. There would be no food on the store shelves. There would be a loss of emergency services. There would eventually be panic that would set in amongst the general population, and this would snowball over a period of time, over several hours, and then days, weeks, and months. And this is a very, very serious threat. And in a world today dominated by technology, we need to understand that this created a giant risk for America and a giant risk for the world at large. And this is one of the ways that a rogue nation or a terrorist state, an enemy of the United States of America, could cripple Washington, D.C., and could decapitate our armed forces and all of our ability to defend ourselves and provide for our human populations in an instant. In fact, there's a really great book, I think it was 1 minute after or 1 second after, that I read earlier this year that absolutely is haunting. In fact, it was recommended by many members of Congress, and Newt Gingrich has encouraged every American to read this book because this is what keeps them up at night. Now, again, our government officials know more than you and I, and they're not going to simply just tell you that these things are coming. And so it's important that we're always vigilant and we remain prepared. Its report was the latest to warn that a blackout would be both deadly and a threat to the nation. It said that the grid is a prime target of terrorists and that Americans are not ready for living without electricity, transportation, fuel, money, and health care. Now, we just had a major event a couple of days ago over the holiday break that I think people are overlooking, of which a blue light and transformers went out in the night sky. And I don't think people are paying close enough attention to potentially what happened. It very likely could have been, in my humble opinion, either a test run that our own government is making to see how things would operate post an event like this, or it could have been an attempt to shock our electrical grid, and it could have been some kind of event that they're not alerting the public to. People no longer keep enough essentials within their homes, reducing their ability to sustain themselves during an extended, prolonged outage. We need to improve individual preparedness, said the report. This is coming from a federal panel, by the way. Not me, not my opinion. They're telling you to prepare. This was released within a couple of days ago. There was another report that came out, and what I'm reading you right now came out 2 weeks ago. There needs to be more individual accountability for preparedness, adds the report. Now, there's another report, I'm going to put the link in the description below, titled Surviving a Catastrophic Power Outage, which if you click the link, I'll do it right now, you can go to. It says how to strengthen the capabilities of the nation. There's an executive summary, introduction, what the nation faces, recommendations and supporting findings, a call to action, study methodology, definitions to frame the study, etc. I encourage you to read that at your leisure. So our own federal government and this federal panel is saying and suggesting Americans are not prepared. Secrets earlier this week pointed out some of the issues raised in the report. Given the growing frequency and severity of disasters and other risks, there needs to be an increase in individual accountability, enterprise, and community investment in resilient infrastructure. There is a misconception that events occur infrequently. There needs to be more individual accountability for preparedness. Resilience at the state and local level will be critical to enable people to shelter in place and facilitate faster recovery. Any event that requires a mass evacuation will use up critical resources, clog transportation networks, and reduce the workforce necessary for infrastructure recovery. Also, just yesterday, a new app was released by the state of California, the first for this to occur in history of any state or city for that matter, that alerts every Californian of an impending earthquake that might hit at any moment. Also, another report I'll link to in the box below. Electricity, fuel, clean drinking water, wastewater services, food, refrigeration, emergency medical services, of course, pharmaceuticals if you need those, communications capabilities, and some access to financial services, which I'm going to get to in a minute, have been identified as critical lifeline services that would be needed to sustain local communities and prevent mass migration. So why am I doing this video? I'm not doing this video to fearmonger. I'm not doing this video to be an alarmist. I'm doing this video because these are things that are currently keeping me up at night. And they're currently things that I'm preparing for. This is coming from a guy who worked for a major Wall Street firm, Merrill Lynch, who 10 years ago picked up a camera, started making YouTube videos after the bailouts in 2008 and 2009 because I was angry that that happened and I thought it was wrong and I thought it hurt everyday people, average Johns and Janes, many of the clients that I was working with, etc. And I fear that this is coming again. I fear that Americans aren't awake. And so I want to point out from an economic perspective and a financial perspective, which is my track record and has been my business for decades. I'm no longer a financial advisor, but I've been studying economics for a very long time, and I've been studying our financial markets, of course. The volatility that we're seeing in the U.S. stock market, the global financial system, and the debt system is extremely, extremely alarming. It is very, very alarming. And I cite all these examples on a regular basis, whether or not it's the yield curve or it's the Federal Reserve raising interest rates, the not raising interest rates. Notice how Jerome Powell came out earlier today and said, well, then they might not raise interest rates now because Apple stock collapsed overnight and it's lost some $400 billion in market capitalization. Notice how oil prices are at $45 a barrel. Again, there's a reason for that. It's telegraphing a depression. It's telegraphing inflation. But more importantly, stay with me here, and this is what I'm getting to. It is telegraphing a liquidity crisis here in the United States. What do I mean by that? It sounds like a fancy term. What it means is bank runs. Okay, Americans don't think that this can happen here in our country. We've been immune largely for the last 70 years or so, post World War II and World War I and some of these events. We're immune to the fact, so are the baby boomers. They don't think that this can happen. They think that they are absolutely immune to historical events. And by the way, every fiat currency in the history of mankind in the world has collapsed. And we sit at the precipice right now of an unbelievable, unsustainable debt load that can never be paid back, of which central banks around the world and the Federal Reserve are coaxing inflation into the economy to try to pay off debt that they can never pay back. And they've put themselves between a rock and a hard place. So again, why am I making this video? I am making this video because I will always be transparent and completely 100% honest with you guys. I'm going to let you know what I'm doing. And in the last few days, weeks, and months, I've been taking steps to prepare myself and my family for what I believe is coming. I believe that we're going to have a bank run here in the United States of America. I believe the banks are going to close. I believe that there's going to be a point in the not too distant future, and I don't know when it's going to be, when Wall Street shuts down, when the New York Stock Exchange shuts down, when quant-based computer systems, because all of this is working on an algorithm nowadays, trading in nanoseconds, there's no real Wall Street traders anymore, all decide to sell at the same time. And the sheep all try to hit the same exit at once. Now, we saw this in 2008 and 2009. We saw how quickly every major financial institution worldwide had gone to zero, that the only thing that could save it was trillions of dollars worth of bailouts promoted by the too big to fail banks and, of course, the billionaires that caused the problem in the first place. So I want you to prepare, and I want you to think logically right now, not in a state of fear, but what would happen if right now, while watching this video, stocks crashed, which we're seeing this right now, the volatility that we're seeing, up 600 points, down 600 points, up 1,000 points, down 1,000 points, back and forth, is only signaling a market collapse, is only signaling that 1929 bank run moment, which I think is coming potentially in 2019. What would happen if Wall Street closed for a few hours, and then a day, and then 2 days? What if you did not have access to cash? Okay, it's something I think that you're going to want to have. Of course, there's a war on cash. They don't want you to have cash. What would you do if your credit cards, your debit cards didn't work? How would you fuel up your gas tank? How would you buy food, shelter, necessities, medications? Do you have at least 30, 60 days, preferably 6 months on hand? And again, I'm not doing this video to fearmonger you. I'm doing it so that you actually prepare. Again, there's nothing wrong with being prepared. These federal agencies are actually encouraging you to do it. Again, they're not going to come out with a giant warning. This is going to be under the radar, and then it's going to happen. And we see this even with the political divide right now in Washington, D.C., with people like Nancy Pelosi that are basically telling the American public that they are going to aggressively attempt to impeach the President of the United States. I mean, talk about being careful what you wish for. I think stock markets would collapse almost overnight in that case. Donald Trump has been the only thing holding this thing up because there's been a lot of business optimism. Whether or not you like him or not, there's been a lot of corporate and business optimism since he's gotten into power. And it's clear that we are facing a giant conflict worldwide. There was just a travel advisory issued by China just about a day ago. There's a war on trade. There's these negotiations taking place. There have been aggressive overtures in Taiwan coming out of the mouth of China, the East and South China Seas. There's a new development in terms of how they're building their navy and dredging islands. My point is, it's clear that something like this, something like one of these events is going to happen, God forbid, within our lifetimes. Not in the future, not in a future generation, but in our lifetimes. And I think Americans are just far too cozy in their homes thinking that we're immune to these types of terrible, terrible attacks. Again, the point of this video is that you actually prepare yourself for what might be coming, that you actually have resources like cash if you need it, if debit and credit cards don't work, or if you can't go to your bank because they shut it down, or FDIC insurance, which is insolvent, bankrupt, can't back up to $250,000 worth of your funds. You need to take action now. All of you should have. Again, don't be the person panicking in a crisis. Have the peace of mind that you've done something today. You should have food, you should have water, you should have a network within your communities, and you should have a game plan for you and your family in the event something like this happens. Now again, folks, I'm an optimist, okay? I'm not hoping for something like this to happen, but I know with unprecedented amounts of debt, I know with my experience, having worked at a major Wall Street firm, and then seeing what these people did in 2008-09, and then also studying mainstream media propaganda for a very, very long time, that these people, your government, is telegraphing a worldwide event. Either an electromagnetic pulse hitting our shores. I don't know where this comes from. I don't know who implements it, but they know more than you. I also encourage you to read the book, and there's no reason why I'm mentioning outside of the fact that it's been recommended by congressmen and women and people like Newt Gingrich 1 second after. It is a fictional read, but it's based on truth, and it basically lays out exactly what potentially would happen in an event like this. And again, guys, you need to be prepared. So I think that we're going to have an event, our equivalent event of what we saw in 1929. I think we'll see a magnified event from what we saw in 2008 and 09, which was a digital bank run. And we could very likely have a physical bank run, which means, again, you will not have access to the things that you need. So please share this video. It's all about being prepared. It's all about staying vigilant. Share it with your friends and family. Help us out. Click the thumbs up button and get it out to the people that you care about. And then take a look at the links, read through some of the documents that I mentioned, and make sure you've got a preparation list for all the just basic necessities. Okay, cash on hand. Again, if everyone went to the bank right now, you won't be able to get your money. That's how it works. The banks don't have your money. They don't hold cash. It's all digital. It's backed by nothing. If Wall Street collapses today or on Monday, God forbid, and Wall Street closes like it did on September 11th for a few hours and then a day and then 2 days and the banks shut down, you will have chaos very, very quickly. Your neighbors will start to panic. You will not be able to buy things like food or water or have pharmaceuticals that you might need on hand for blood pressure medications or heart medications or whatever it might be, whatever ails you. So be prepared, be vigilant, get this out, again, to your friends and family. Share it right now across all social media platforms and let them know that they need to be paying attention. Again, this is going under the radar. And nobody's raising an alarm bell that this is a very serious potential event that could very likely happen. And I know, just trusting my own gut instincts, something has just felt very, very out of place in recent days. There's this increasing growth of uncertainty, just watching what's going on Wall Street, with the rhetoric, our Federal Reserve, the president, as we enter the new year. Something's up. Something's up. It smells rotten. You know, if it looks like a turd, smells like a turd, it's a turd. And I'm telling you guys, from the bottom of my heart, prepare yourself. Take this message and warning very, very seriously. And then that way, you've got peace of mind that if and when something like this does happen, you're prepared. And more important than that, God bless each and every one of you. I love you. Thank you so much for tuning in. And I hope you have a great day.